Never. That's your guy. That's your forever guy. Not Ruth, not Gehrig, not Mantle, not DiMaggio, not Berra, not Jeter, not Pettit, not Andujar, not Torreyes, not Judge, not Bird, and Kranepool. And Kranepool.
We all got a good chuckle out of this Don LaGreca rant, right? The Mets are always good for a laugh. But all good jokes are based in truth. I want to talk about David Wright, and how he's a hero of mine, and also how I'm not wholly satisfied with how all of this is ending, and how it's not entirely his fault. It's complicated. Just hear me out, I'll explain as best I can.
The horrible truth is that the number of homegrown Mets who have killed it from day one are limited. Especially in the 30 years since their last championship, the number of studs the Mets have produced on either side of the ball can be counted on one hand, maybe two.
Guys fizzle out in a hurry, or never get going to begin with, or completely fall on their face, or never make it at all, or get injured. Like, really injured? Like, oh my god, stop with the injuries already injured?
Here's a sentence from Bleacher Report in 2012 when the Mets actually drafted a decent player in Brandon Nimmo. Baseball America already has him as their third best prospect. This says a lot about Nimmo when you factor in the talent that other top prospects like Wilmer Flores, Kirk Neuenhuis, Cesar Puello Hermanos, and Corey Vaughn all possess. Who? The thing is that when a prospect comes up and actually does alright, we treat it like a pleasant surprise as opposed to a common occurrence. But no one has ever lit the world on fire in the way that other rookies around the MLB do.
The Dodgers have a new rookie phenom every year, like Puig, Seager, Muncy, Bellinger, Peterson. The Red Sox have Betts, Bogarts, Benintendi, Bradley Jr. kind of. And Devers has a chance to be great too. The Yankees have Judge, Torres, Sanchez, Andujar, guys in the wings like Torreyes and Frazier, even guys that have no business performing right away do, like Luke Voit. Who is Luke Voit?
And those are all recent examples. Those franchises have been doing this for decades. Their kids win awards, they win titles, and the Mets will occasionally spit out a good complementary player, but not the kind of person that you build a franchise around, like Lucas Duda, or Michael Conforto, or Daniel Murphy. That's not to slag any of those guys off, but you know what I mean, right?
The Mets also have this habit. When they do get a great player, homegrown or not, they almost never finish their career as a Met.
They traded Tom Seaver away, Michael. He begged to be a Met in '84. Michael, he begged them. I want to come back to this piece of garbage organization, and they left him unprotected, and the White Sox took him. The White Sox, though, and you know what he did with the White Sox, Michael? Do you remember what he did? Do you remember what he did?
300th win.
Against who?
Yanks.
Right in his hometown, right here in New York. Darryl, 3 championships as a Yankee. Gooden, no-hitter as a Yankee. Nolan Ryan, 7 no-hitters. Not one of them is a Met. 7. Kuzman was a Twin. Bud Harrelson was a Ranger. Do I go on?
That list is going to increase. Daniel Murphy is going to end his career elsewhere after becoming a Met killer as a National. Carlos Beltran will make the Hall of Fame, probably wearing a Mets hat. But he went out on top as an Astro. Yoenis Cespedes, even when he was healthy, was saying he wants to end his career in Oakland. Syndergaard and DeGrom were involved in trade rumors all season long. Who knows what will happen to them in the future?
This is something I touched on in one of my first videos, Mets Masochism. Why is Wilmer Flores so beloved by this team's fans when his numbers are average and his defense is less so? Because the thought of not being a Met was so devastating to him that he broke down on the field. And it hits me. This is what we've been waiting for. Wilmer Flores poured his heart out on the field because for once, someone thought it was really cool to be a Met.
After that fateful night of the botched trade, both Flores and Zach Wheeler went to Sandy Alderson begging not to be traded.
Something was happening, and they wanted to be a part of it. They believed the New York Mets could win. They wanted the New York Mets to win. Being a Met was cool. Being a Met fan had never been cool before.
He may have the franchise record for walk-off hits already, but someone like Wilmer Flores wasn't designed to stay with one team his entire career. He was destined to bounce around. He's basically Mark DeRosa. He is what he is, and that's okay. The problem is that guys who stick around from beginning to end are so rare for the Mets. What does it say when your lifers are guys like Ed Kranepool or Wilmer Flores? Even guys that are notable that leave and come back. Who has ever done that for the Mets? Matt Kemp gets to do that as a Dodger. Andy Pettitte gets to do that as a Yankee. You know who's done that for us?
And is hit away, and Reyes with a beautiful diving stop, and he got him!
Jose Reyes. Reyes was electric in his first stint as a Met. An amazing talent.
But I come to bury Jose Reyes, not to praise him.
His hamstrings turned to jelly. Then he left our broke-ass team in the dust. His career started to fizzle. Then, as Don LaGreca also pointed out,
We know Jose Reyes beat his wife! That's the difference! That's the answer! We know! We know Reyes did! We know Reyes did!
when no one else would take him, not even for a minimum salary, we took this disgraced husk of a player back in with open arms. And we gave him a standing ovation. Hey, if it helps us win, fans all said. Well, guess what? The Mets suck and Jose Reyes sucks most of all. He's been under the Mendoza line all year. He's a butcher defensively, and his best weapon, his speed, is gone. Yet he's gonna get a tearful goodbye on Saturday, September 29th because of what he represents. This player, one of the most beloved Mets of all time, the spark plug of the best Met teams of the last 30 years, doesn't deserve pity or any more adulation.
He deserved to be cut, like in May.
He hasn't done anything to repair his public image, but if all you care about is winning, what do you say about a guy like Jose Reyes, who's been an active detriment to your team since he came back? Mourn the death of an era of Mets baseball he helped lead. I'll shed no tears for Jose Reyes, the man, nor the ball player. Oh, and he's a crappy musician, so suck on that, Jose.
And even the ones that you can name. No championships out of them. And sad story. I'm sorry, Reyes is a sad story. That's a sad ending.
But then, there's David Wright.
David did come out of the gate strong. He hit for average, he hit for power, he pounded the gaps, he stole bases, he won gold gloves, silver sluggers. Remember that time he hit 16 dingers in the Derby in Pittsburgh? Man, wasn't that awesome? Then he hit a home run the next night in the All-Star game. Look at that! That's our guy. Finally, we have the young stud. David did things the way every kid would want to do them if they were a pro ball player. He played with a smile. He played with fire. He made flashy plays to be repeated on SportsCenter over and over. He came up with the big hit way more times than he was ever given credit for. For as much flack as he took for not coming up with the big hit in his career, he had a lot of walk-offs, some in huge games. Remember that one off of Mariano, when we could look Big Brother in the eye and gloat for once? Or when he had that walk-off for Team USA in the World Baseball Classic? Look at our guy. That's our guy doing it on the world stage.
He broke franchise records. He won that stupid Face of the MLB contest that no one really cared about. Our guy could do it all. It sounds silly to cling to all of this, but it's so true. We needed someone to pick up the torch of awesomeness that Mike Piazza left behind. And David looked like he could do it.
He visited sick kids, was kind to fans and staff and reporters. Everyone universally adored this player, this man, who had every right to be a big shot but never carried himself that way on or off the field. When David spoke, you believed him, and that's a rare quality in an athlete.
There was just one thing that was missing. This is what I believe to be the crux of Don LaGreca's rant. What constitutes a happy ending for a franchise player? Patrick Ewing was an amazing Nick, right? Henrik Lundqvist, one of the best goaltenders, if not the best goaltender of this generation. Mike Piazza, iconic hit after hit after hit. What do those three guys have in common? Well, don't we think just a little bit less of those guys because of what they didn't accomplish as opposed to what they did?
Strictly for the Mets, Mike Piazza got a bat thrown at him in the World Series. He got disrespected, and the Mets lost to Big Brother in 5 games. Carlos Beltran could have etched himself and Endy Chavez into immortality. Didn't swing the bat.
When we get to evaluating Yoenis Cespedes' tenure in New York, we're eventually going to have to come to grips with the fact that he was 3 for 20 in the World Series and 0 for 4 in the 2016 wildcard game. It just has to be brought up.
David Wright's 2016 couldn't get that last big hit with Wright waiting in the hole. His 2007 and 2008 teams collapsed in epic public fashion. He fought his ass off to get healthy for the 2015 postseason, and while he got his World Series home run, he watched as his bullpen imploded, his ace got shellacked, and his defense acted like they were allergic to baseballs.
Bottom 1, Alcides Escobar steps in against Matt Harvey. The first pitch is lined to left field, trotting over his American League Gold Glove left fielder Yoenis Cespedes, and what? 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 What?
And unfortunately, David will finish as a career 198 postseason hitter.
I'm not saying that's fair or unfair, but that's just the cost of doing business playing in New York. When people make Andy Pettit's Hall of Fame case, they don't bring up the fact that his ERA was over 4 in 50% of his seasons. They point to his 19 playoff wins. Even though his ERA was a pedestrian 3.81 in all of his playoff games, it doesn't matter. They don't ask how. They ask if. And Andy did.
Holy smokes! The captain is back!
What makes a happy ending? When David returned from his back injury the first time, he hit a home run in his first at-bat. That felt like magic, didn't it? If he did that again on Saturday, would that be a happy ending? To triumph over injury and get one last shining moment? Wouldn't that be something? What makes a happy ending?
I know I sound like a butthurt Met fan every time I compare them to the Yankees, but proximity makes it impossible not to. David is coming back to the most disappointing Mets team since 2009. This team had expectations, and they delivered on them for 13 glorious games. Well, you know who else said goodbye on a trash team? Mariano Rivera in 2013.
The 2013 Yankees were buns. Travis Hafner, Lyle Overbay, Knicks, good God. But he still got one more moment of glory with a standing ovation at home. The franchise player had the ball taken from him by other franchise players. That moment got to be special because a winner was walking off the field with other winners.
One of those winners was Derek Jeter, whose 2014 farewell tour was pretty insufferable. Derek wasn't much of a hitter anymore, wasn't much of a fielder anymore, and, oh yeah, the 2014 Yankees, they sucked too. When was Bryant Roberts a New York Yankee?
But Derek was the perennial winner. Since the year I was born, 1995, he was the alpha male. I never knew a world with no Derek Jeter for people to salivate over. Rooting for the Mets while watching Derek Jeter, well, how did Sean Connery put it?
Your best. Losers always whine about their best. Winners go home and fuck the prom queen.
So of course he got one more shining moment. Because he's Derek Jeter. You're waiting for me to play it, aren't you? I'm not playing that! Go look it up yourself!
What makes a happy ending? Maybe this is the best comparison for David. Eli Manning. Like David, Eli was never on the best team in football. Eli was never the best quarterback in the NFL. He was a fan favorite with all the tools and squeaky clean personality to be a marketable star. He was earnest, likable, and never shirked responsibility. just a drama-free leader. But Eli did the one thing David never did. He won. And he was MVP of the championship. And to prove he wasn't a fluke, he won again. 'Cause winners win. So, Eli will always be a legend. This generation of sports fans will never forget Eli Manning's name. He'll be up for the Hall of Fame, and whether he gets in or not, he'll get a roaring ovation from MetLife Stadium every time he comes back. David will get a standing O too, but Eli's will have an extra oomph. And we'll know why.
David's place in Mets history is significant. Someone who tore it up from day one, who succeeded not just on a relative level, but a national and international level. Someone who wanted to play for the New York Mets, and in turn, someone the organization didn't drive away. He wanted to play every day for us. He was our captain. He was our guy.
But there's complications. When the Mets were at their best, David wasn't the biggest threat. The 2000s Mets had Beltran and Delgado to bat ahead of Wright. The 2015 Mets were carried by Cespedes and Murphy. David, while key to the success of the team, wasn't quite the Mike Piazza type of Atlas holding the Mets on his shoulders. He didn't have to be. And roll aside, if he had just won once, he probably would have been confirmed as the greatest Met not named Seaver ever.
But he didn't win. We didn't win. So this ending will inherently have a twinge of what could have been underneath. That, as good as David was, he couldn't get it done alone. He needed help, and management couldn't provide it, for one, but our forever guy is going to go down in the Hall of Very Good. He'll have his number retired, and he's easily the best forever player the Mets have ever had. But it says something about a franchise when David Wright is statistically as good as it gets.
Well, I love Ed Kranepool. He hit a home run my first Met game I ever went to in 1972. But is it wrong to want better? Is it wrong to want better for 50 years of watching a team? Do I deserve better than Ed Kranepool? Tremendous human being, Michael.
Peter, would you please pay attention to Don? He's having trouble breathing.
The Yankees have 5 forever guys on the team now. Right? Well, Peter, on this second.
I love David. David will forever be our guy. But speaking objectively, David will be forgotten pretty quickly outside of the Mets circle, and it's just so frustrating to watch other forever players come up through other systems. Within 2 years, Aaron Judge has finessed David Wright. He's going to win an MVP. He's probably going to win a World Series sooner rather than later. He's a Hall of Famer in the making if he stays on this path. David won't get a single vote. I want a Hall of Famer too. We've had one in this entire franchise, and he came up in 1967!
Jeff McNeil has been terrific since he got called up. Does he get attention? No, because in his division is Ronald Acuna, and Ozzie Albies, and Rhys Hoskins, and oh yeah, Bryce Harper, for now. Young homegrown talents that you buy tickets to see, that have unbelievable potential. The Mets had 0 homegrown players you paid to see between Strawberry and Gooden and Wright and Reyes. 0. And now, you pay money to see Jake DeGrom pitch a gem and lose a 2-1 game. Keep your fingers crossed for Pete Alonso, I guess.
So what makes a happy ending? Is it if David gets the game-winning hit? Is it if David gets a hit? Is it that David is even taking the field at all after fighting to keep his body together for 3 years? Is a truly happy ending even possible in the grand scheme of things? That he fought so hard to say goodbye to the most frustrated fans in baseball is truly remarkable. It speaks to him as a person, and that he recognizes the situation that he's in. I'll be there on Saturday, and I'll be cheering my ass off for this guy. But it is a bit like buying a ticket to a funeral, because I'm laying to rest a part of my childhood. I'm laying to rest the days where I could walk into school as a kid and be surrounded by Jeter and Rivera and A-Rod shirts. And there I am proudly wearing the number 5 saying, look at my guy. Isn't he awesome?
I wear the number 5 anytime I play because of David. I love playing third base because of my mom and David. I started to wiggle my bat in my stance when I was 11 years old so I could look like David. And I have the same stupid Muppet face in all my action shots that David does. Just less tongue.
I root for the New York Mets. My forever guy is David Wright. He may not be getting a fairy tale ending, but I'll be there in a sold-out Citi Field making sure it's as happy and as loud as it possibly can be. He never asked for that, but he deserves it.
Now pinch hitting for the Mets, the captain, number 5,